Hello and welcome to DCN Weekly, your regular roundup of Australia's shipping, ports and logistics news. This episode is for the week ending 29th of August 2025, and I'm Lindsay Reid, publisher at DCN.
And I'm David Sexton, senior journalist at DCN.
Well, another packed week of news at DCN, but David, before we get into the headlines, we should probably backtrack a week or so to the Australian Logistics Council Summit that you and I both attended in Sydney on the 21st of August. Now, there was a lot covered in one day there, and I know we both got a lot from the various panel discussions and presentations, but what would you say your overall take on the feel of the day was?
Yes, absolutely. A lot covered on the day. The federal government released the freight review and the opposition had their 2 cents worth as well. But I think for me, Lindsay, there was this real sense of working together and preparing for the uncertainties ahead. Everyone talks about resilience, and it was really about how we can navigate those inevitable bumps in the road through collaboration and preparation.
They emphasised that productivity gains come not just from individual infrastructure investments, although they are important, but from how well these investments work together as an integrated system. I want to thank the industry representatives who contributed their time and expertise to the important discussion, and your insights are helping shape our approach to building a more productive and efficient national freight network that supports Australia's economic growth and competitiveness.
Yes, and you heard just then a grab from Minister Catherine King, who was speaking about roundtables held and the subsequent release of the revised national freight strategy. And yes, David, I think you're right. More than ever, there's this real emphasis on the supply chain. It sounds so obvious, but it's all about ports to rail to road, working more collaboratively than ever. So the collective is just more productive and more future-proof. So you can jump onto DCN to read some of our coverage and more on the specific topics and panels from the conference. But let's move on now to what's been making headlines this week. David, it's been a week of resolution, it seems, with a number of enterprise agreements being settled.
Yes, absolutely. It was announced on Wednesday that VICT has signed a new enterprise agreement with local unions, covering the whole of their operations until March 2029, with VIC describing it as a positive agreement for everyone involved.
And that was closely followed by an announcement from Hutchison today that they've also finalised their agreement with maritime unions.
Yes, they certainly have, with no industrial disruption, and CEO John Willey saying a quick game is a good game.
Yeah, and among the outcomes, they agreed on a binding ban on automation at their terminals in Sydney and Brisbane, wage rises and secure part-time permanent roles. And we hear that the I's are being dotted and the T's crossed on Flinders Adelaide Container Terminal's new EA2. So yes, a big week for those agreements. And another big story that we ran this week was the announcement that Straitlink is up for sale.
Yes, that story certainly generated a lot of interest from our readers. The announcement came on Monday that private equity investors Allegro Funds were putting the Bass Strait shipping company on the market. Straitlink, of course, is the former toll shipping that was acquired by Allegro back in 2021. It operates the twin Ro-Ros, Tasmanian Achiever 2 and Victorian Reliance 2, between Melbourne's Webb Dock and Burnie.
Yes, and we'll all be watching closely to see who the buyer ends up being. There's a bit of speculation in Dale's article up on our website, but we'll just have to wait and see.
We will. And actually, one of our other top stories this week was also out of Tasmania, with the news that Spirit of Tasmania 4 has returned to Hobart.
Yes, indeed. Lots of enthusiasts tracked its journey from Scotland via Fremantle to see it finally arriving in Hobart. Although not for long, actually, as the vessel is due to move again in a couple of months over to a Victorian port to free up the Hobart berths for the 25-26 cruise season. And we understand that port is likely to be the former BAE Systems jetty at Williamstown, David. Is that right?
Yes, that's what we've heard. It's the same jetty where the Royal Australian Navy's landing helicopter dock ships Adelaide and Canberra were completed from 2023 to 2025.
And as for Spirit 5, David, what's the plan there?
Yes, Spirit 5 staying put in Europe. However, it will move from the construction yard at RMMC in Finland by November to make sure it doesn't get trapped by sea ice.
And any idea where that will move to?
No specifics at the moment, and nothing from the government yet as to whether it will also spend time in Leith, where Spirit 4 was moved to.
Yes, well, still a bit of a journey for these vessels before they start operating back in Tassie later next year. And now, in a bit of a setback for Australian offshore wind, we reported the news this week that Novacastran Wind Limited, a JV between Norway's Equinor and local partners OceanX Energy, has decided not to proceed with a feasibility licence offered by the Australian government.
Yes, this project, had it been successfully completed, was tipped to meet as much as 10% of New South Wales' annual electricity needs, but will not proceed any further, although OceanX did release a statement affirming their commitment to offshore wind and to exploring options to support jobs, investment and prosperity for the Hunter region and the state.
Yes, and it seems analysts are attributing decisions like these to a sense of unease following a blanket decision over in the US to withdraw offshore wind farm licenses in US waters. So it will be interesting to see how far the knock-on effect of that decision goes in terms of these projects and investment globally. Well, that's it for this week's headlines. Remember, you can find more on these stories and many more at thedcn.com.au. And we'd also love to hear from you. Tell us what you think, what you'd like to hear more of, and you might even want to come on here and have a chat. So any tips or tip-offs, please drop us a line at editorial@thedcn.com.au. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes, we certainly would, and we'll be back next week from Gladstone in central Queensland.
Yes, we'll be up there for the BizOps conference, so we'll be reporting on that and bringing you all the latest from there. In the meantime, have a great week, and we'll catch you next week.
Thanks for listening.